Yo, what's good, guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. Hope you guys are having a good night. This video's kind of going up a little bit later than I anticipated, but today's story time is a pretty interesting one. Definitely a lot of lessons to be learned in this story, at least if you're a young kid still, like I was in this. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's get into it. So today's story time all takes place in 7th grade. Yeah, one of my final years of middle school. This was actually the last month of 7th grade. Now in 7th grade, I actually had a very good year. For the most part, it was a pretty chill year. I liked most of my teachers, I liked the school that I went to, and I liked my friends at that school. So really, there wasn't a lot of complaints when it came to 7th grade. However, there were a couple kids at my school, in my classes, that were terrible. And when I say that, they weren't terrible to me. Well, maybe sometimes they were, but most of the time they weren't. They were terrible to other kids. For example, there was this girl in my class. Let's just call her Sarah, okay? Sarah had a disability. Now, the school didn't come out and just tell everybody, hey, this girl has a disability, because that's not really how that works. And nobody in like the classes knew what she had, but you could tell with talking with her, she was very quiet. Anytime she did speak, she would talk about specific things that she was really interested in. For example, she loved Barbie. And I don't know about y'all, but in 7th grade, there weren't a lot of girls like still talking about Barbies like that. And with how much passion this girl had for Barbies, like it was just truly kind of impressive. But it wasn't just that. There were a couple other things like not picking up on certain social cues and just the way she would speak to other individuals. Not rude or anything, but you could definitely tell that there was a couple things that she didn't really understand. However, this girl had straight A's. She crushed school. Now anyway, after I say all that, you're probably like, Austin, how does that mean she has autism, dude? What the hell do you know about autism, bro? Well, I'll just say it. I'm autistic. I'm just kidding. Actually, I don't know if I am or not. A lot of people in my family have autism. So, you know, your boy might have a touch of the tism. Who knows? Honestly, I wouldn't give a fuck if I did. Like I said, a lot of people in my family have it. They're cool. They're chill. They're smart. Smarter than me. They graduated. I didn't. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. So a few people in my family have it. And also, there's a person in my family who is a tutor for kids with autism. And she tutored Sarah. And she told me one day when I got home from school, she was like, hey, do you know Sarah Blank? And I was like, yes, I do know Sarah Blank. She's in my class. And she was like, okay, well, she has autism. So if you ever see any kids being mean to her or like you're talking to her and she's not picking up on something, be patient, you know, and go easy on her. Don't let kids pick on her. And I was like, of course, like, I kind of had a feeling, but now that you confirmed it, like, it's good to know. And she was like, okay, good. So anyway, now that you have all that backstory, I was in class one day. It was my first period class in 7th grade. Like I said earlier on, it was the last month, I believe, of the school year. So at this point, pretty much everybody in the classroom was pretty on edge. They just wanted to, like, get school over with and have summer hit. And another thing about my first period class, it was one of 2 classes that I had with Sarah. And not just Sarah, but it was also the class with the most dickheads. That's where all of like the Chad kind of like bully type kids were. And pretty much every day, someone in that class was just being a dickhead or an asshole, like making fun of somebody else, just being a troll. And I was always concerned that it would end up making its way to Sarah. And unfortunately on this day it did, and in the worst form possible. So before class started, this teacher walks in, who was not our regular teacher. It was a substitute. And not just any substitute. The world's most soulless, fucking boring, just absolute, like, I don't even know what word to use to describe this lady. Just fucking boring and soulless is all I can say. Like, she walked in, and she reminded me of the lady from Monsters, Inc., like the paperwork lady. She walked in, she was like, hello, children. Everybody take your seats. Stop horsing around. And I remember my friend at my table looked at me and he's like, dude, this fucking lady sounds like the lady from Monsters, Inc. And I was like, bro, I was thinking the same fucking thing. If you haven't seen Monsters, Inc., go look that up right now. Look up Monsters, Inc. Paperwork. Just look that up. If you haven't seen the whole movie, just go watch the whole fucking movie. It's a classic. Anyway, so class starts off and this lady's soulless and she's kind of mean. We were doing this project. It was actually language arts. I forgot to tell you guys the class. It was language arts class. and we were doing this like book report project thing. And in my opinion, this was the worst day to have a substitute because it was an important project. It required you to present in front of the entire class, and our actual teacher wasn't there to see it. Also, it was bad because our actual teacher knows about Sarah's condition, the fact she has autism, and would go a little bit easier on Sarah when it came to things like this because she knew how stressful it was for her. For example, usually when we'd have like presentations and projects, Sarah would present them in private usually with just the teacher because she had super bad public speaking anxiety, which is completely understandable, and it's probably twice as bad for her due to her disability. So anyway, the substitute teacher was like, all right, so today you'll be presenting your book report. Austin, you go first. And I was like, damn it. So I stood up, went up there. I did not do it. I didn't even read the book. I read the summary on the back and then just got up in front of the whole class and freestyled a whole ass book report. And I wish I had this on video because it was so funny. Essentially, like I said, I was just spitting bullshit. I was like, yeah, this book like truly changed my outlook on this situation, and the main character was one of the most independent, noble main characters in any book I've ever read, and I really love the ending and how he came to a resolution with his life. And this teacher goes, did you even read the book? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, he dies in the end. I was like, well, yeah, I was getting to that. And then everyone starts laughing. And this random kid in the back of the class, who I barely knew, his name was Aaron, he was like, Austin, you didn't read that fucking book? You're full of shit. And I was like, all right, I'm done. And I just went back to my seat, and she failed me for the project. Anyway, I got back to my seat, and this teacher, the substitute, goes, all right, Sarah, you're next. And Sarah's face, like, immediately freezes. Like, you could see the fear in her eyes, and everybody looks at her kind of fearful for her because they knew that she didn't like going up and presenting. And these asshole kids in the side of the room, on like the right side, not far from where Sarah was sitting, start smiling and laughing because they knew that she wasn't going to be like ready to present in front of the entire class. And I remember me and my friend both giving them a dirty look, and my friend threw him the finger because they were being assholes, and personally, they deserved it. But anyway, the teacher was like, come on, honey, come up and present. And she goes, no thanks. And the teacher's like, well, I'm not asking. You have to present. Like, it's a project. And Sarah goes, no thanks. And the teacher goes, I'm not going to ask again. Get up here and present. And I walked up to the front of the room, and I went to whisper in the teacher's ear and tell her, like, hey, she has a disability. Go easy on her. And she goes, Austin, sit back down. And I was like, no, you really don't understand. She goes, sit back down now. And I was like, fine. So I went back to my seat. And at this point, Sarah has tears running down her face because she doesn't want to present. And I don't fucking blame her. I didn't want to present either. And I can only imagine what this girl was going through. And the teacher goes, Sarah, get up here and present, or I'm going to report you to the main office. And Sarah starts bawling her eyes out and like crying hysterically. And she gets up, and you could visibly see that she had an accident. Okay, like, not going to go into great detail here, but she peed herself, essentially. And pretty much the entire room was silent. The teacher, I'd say about 95% of the kids. But of course, you can guess who the two assholes were, laughing as loud as they possibly could. Now listen, if it was anybody else that peed their pants, like, even if it was me and I was in that situation, I would understand people laughing at me, okay? Like, even if the majority of the class laughed, as embarrassing as that would be, I'd kind of get it, even though it's not really good. I would kind of understand. But, like, this girl had a fucking disability. Not an easy one to deal with at that. And everyone pretty much got that, except these two douchebags. So I got really mad. Being from a family that has that in their family, and seeing people my entire life grow up with it and how hard it is, I had a lot of sympathy for this girl. So I walked up to these two dudes and I was like, do you guys think you're funny? Like, actually, like, you really think you're funny? And the one dude's like, bro, that was hilarious. And I was like, oh, what part? The part where the girl with the disability started crying hysterically, or the part where she peed herself, or the part where she stormed out because everybody saw it? And they immediately got a real serious look on their face. And I was like, oh yeah, exactly. When I say it out loud, it doesn't sound that funny, does it? Like, you were literally laughing before she had the accident. You were laughing at her freaking out inside, having a panic attack at the fact she had to present. Where is the fun in that? And immediately the teacher was like, all right, sit down. And I walked up to the teacher next. I was giving everybody the fucking smoke. I walked up to her and I was like, and you? I was like, I tried coming up and telling you. I tried warning you of what would happen. And you were like, no, go sit back down. You could have stopped this. But you kept forcing her to come up here. Like, did our teacher leave you any kind of preparation notes? I bet they're in there. And she goes, that's none of your business. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see when she comes in tomorrow. I'm going to ask her if she told you about it. And she goes, sit down. And I'm like, no. And she goes, go to the main office. So I did. I went up to the main office. I walked in there. And looking back, should I have been that way? Should I have went around judging people? No, I shouldn't have. Honestly, like, it's 7th grade. A lot of 7th graders laugh at things that shouldn't be laughed at. I understand that. But something about this, probably just because I have people with autism in my family, it hit close to home and it made me really mad. So anyway, I went up to the main office. I walked in there. And sure enough, guess who I see there sitting in one of the chairs? It was Sarah. And I sat down next to her and I was like, hey, just so you know, like, I got your back. Just because, like, I don't know. That's what I'd want to hear in that situation. And she was like, oh, thanks. And I was like, no problem. And she was like, did people laugh at me? And I said, yeah, 2 people laughed. But my friend threw him the finger and I told him off, so I got your back. And she was like, what'd you say? And I told her everything I said. And she was like, wow, thank you. And I was like, no problem. And she was like, I'm so embarrassed. And in that moment, I really only saw one way to make this girl feel like, you know, in the moment, she wasn't alone. So like, you want to know something even worse than what happened to you? And she goes, okay. And I was like, 2 years ago, like, when I was just about to go into middle school, I shit my pants. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, in school. Yep, I had food poisoning. My parents forced me to go. And first period class, I shit myself. And she starts hysterically laughing and pointing at me, laughing. And now I'm starting to feel a little bit of the pain. I'm like, okay, chill. All right, chill. And after she got done laughing for about 2 minutes straight, she was like, that's funny. And I was like, yeah, I figured. And she was like, thank you for having my back. And I was like, anytime. Now, the story doesn't end there. So she goes to the nurse after this. The nurse opens her door and like lets her in, and she goes in there. I go into the principal's office, and the principal's like, Austin, why are you up here? What'd you do? And I told her the whole truth. I told her exactly what happened, start to finish. And she actually kind of sided with me. She was like, listen, I think sticking up for her is a great thing to do. However, in the future, just do it from your seat. Don't get up. Don't make a scene. And I was like, I understand, but like, I felt like a scene kind of had to be made because people in that class can't go around thinking it's okay to do that to someone. And she was like, I get it. No, I get it. Honestly, I get it. But in the future, let the teachers handle it. And I was like, the teacher wasn't handling it. That's the problem. And she's like, okay, well, I'll talk to her. And I was like, thank you. And she sent me back to class. I went back down there. I did like the walk in to the room. It's like I walked into a UFC event. I walked in there with like my head held high, like no detention, no after school detention, no suspension, lunch detention, anything. I was fucking free. And I walked in, I sat down with a smile on my face. The 2 dickheads in the side of the class that were laughing at her and making jokes out of it had a real like angry look on their face because I was back in the classroom. And so did the teacher. And my friend next to me was like, yo, what happened? And I told him what happened. And he was like, dude, good for you. Like, stand your fucking ground. He's like, fuck those dudes. And I was like, I know. Now, anyway, the story doesn't end there either. The next day rolls around. I come into my English class, and it was my first period, as usual. And my actual teacher was back. And so was Sarah. She was sitting in a normal spot like usual. And right before class was about to start, she points at me and the 2 dudes that I was arguing with the day before and had a problem with. And she goes, you 3, I need to talk to you out in the hallway. And I was like, oh, okay. So we all stand up. We go out there. She has us all like stand against the wall, like leaning up against the wall. And one by one, she starts at the dude on the furthest to the right. She starts yelling at him. She's like, I cannot believe what I came back to in my notes. You laughed at a girl who you know has a disability. You made fun of her. You essentially humiliated her. and I don't stand for that in my classroom. If you step out of line again, you will be moved into a different classroom. Do you understand? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, okay, you can head inside. And he turns, he goes back in the classroom, shuts the door. Then she goes on to the next guy, the other guy, and she's like, you, same goes for you. You and your buddy both laughed like it was a group effort and made fun of her. So the same thing goes for you. Step out of line again, you're out of my class. And he goes, okay, I'm sorry. And she goes, good, go inside. And he goes inside. And then she comes up to me, and I'm like, oh no, man, I'm about to get it. Like she's about to scream at me. And she goes, you, come here. And she gives me a hug, and I was like, oh, thank fuck, she's not mad at me, okay. And she was like, what you did is so mature for your age. I don't care what anybody else says, like, you did the right thing. And I was like, thank you so much. And she was like, usually you're the class clown, so I appreciate you stepping up in this situation because honestly, Austin, I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. And I was like, thank you. And I was like, can I just ask something quickly? She was like, yeah. I'm like, did the substitute know that she had a disability? Because like, she was so not patient with her at all. And the teacher goes, yeah, she knew. I left her a note, told her to go easy on her, told her she should not be presenting, and she just did not follow at all. I don't think she even read my notes. And I was like, that makes sense. So yeah, I guess I wasn't in the wrong in that regard. I was kind of mean to the teacher, the substitute, but I was right. She didn't fucking read the notes or even care if she did read. I don't know. But yeah, guys, all in all, it was a very crazy day. And honestly, I look back and I am pretty proud of myself because there's a lot of dumb shit I did in school and a lot of shit I look back on where I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have done that, or damn, that was really immature, or damn, like, if I did this differently, then maybe this would have happened. But I look back on this and I think, you know, you did the right thing, Austin. You stuck up for someone that needed it. So yeah, that was good. Moral of the story is, if you're in school, whether you're in 1st or 12th grade, or if you're not in school and you're just a regular ass adult like your boy, just don't be a dickhead. It doesn't cost any money. It doesn't take any effort. In fact, it takes the least amount of effort out of anything in this world to just shut your mouth and not be a dickhead. If you want to especially not be a dickhead, open your mouth and be nice to people. Give them a compliment. Or don't make fun of them for shit they can't control. That's all. That's the moral of today's story. Usually I don't have like crazy, wholesome messages, but I feel like this one kind of does. Yeah, guys, I don't know. Moral of the story is don't be a dickhead. Now, before I end off this story, I'd like to tell you the happy ending here. I actually still follow Sarah to this day on social media, and she's killing it. She's got like a super, super dope job at a company not far from where I live. And one of the other dudes, the dickheads, doesn't have a job, and he constantly just runs his mouth on Twitter all day about people from high school because he's still stuck in it. And as for dickhead number 2, I don't really know what he's up to nowadays. I couldn't find any social media of his, so who knows what he's doing. So, moral number 2 of the story, karma's a bitch.
Anyone that's asking me for something getting smacked. Made it here myself, now they want me to lend a